They laughed at the 70-year-old inmate, called him weak, easy prey. But when the gang leader tried to make an example of him, no one laughed again. They say prison breaks a man the day he walks in. But for Ray Jefferson, the moment those iron gates slammed shut behind him, something else happened. He didn't break. He became still, not afraid, not angry, just still. It was early morning at the Huntsville unit in Texas, the kind of place where the air smelled like metal and sweat before the sun even rose. Guards moved with machine-like rhythm, calling names, shuffling papers, boots echoing across the concrete. New inmates kept their eyes down, clutching their bags of state-issued clothes like lifelines. But Ray was different. At 70 years old, with silver hair cut short and a back slightly bent from years of teaching mixed martial arts, he didn't look like a criminal. He looked like someone's grandfather, the kind of man who should have been trimming hedges or feeding birds, not walking into a maximum security prison. The guard checking him in, Officer Rudd, gave him a long look. 70? You sure you're in the right place, old man? Ray met his eyes, calm and steady. I made my choices, he said quietly. Now I'm making peace with them. Rudd smirked. Peace doesn't last long in here. Inside, the noise was endless. Metal doors slamming, laughter echoing from unseen cells. And every shout that cut through the corridor carried a message. You're not free anymore. When Ray stepped into his new block, Cell Block D, the conversations dipped. For a brief second, dozens of men turned to look at him. Some snickered. Others whispered. An old man walking into this world wasn't common. An old man who didn't look scared? That was new. A tall inmate with tattooed arms leaned toward his friend. He won't last a week. Ray didn't respond. His eyes scanned the place like he was assessing a fight gym, checking corners, exits, potential threats. His breathing stayed slow, steady. Years of training were still in him, hidden beneath wrinkles and quiet control. At lunch he sat alone. The smell of mashed potatoes and boiled beans filled the room. Across the cafeteria, a man with a buzz cut and cold eyes watched him. Tyler Briggs. Tyler didn't need to raise his voice. His name carried weight. He ran the white gang that ruled Block D. Tattoos climbed his neck, and that crooked half-smile on his face said he enjoyed being feared. Old man looks lost, Tyler said, flicking a piece of cornbread toward Ray's table. His crew laughed. Ray didn't even look up. He just kept eating. One young inmate whispered, "That's Briggs." "You don't ignore him," Ray replied quietly. "Everyone's a somebody, until they meet the right reason not to be." The kid blinked, unsure if it was wisdom or madness. After lunch, guards led Ray to his cell, second floor, middle tier. The air was thick with humidity and the faint sting of bleach. His cellmate hadn't arrived yet, so Ray set down his bag, folded his uniform, and sat on the lower bunk. He pressed his palms together, closed his eyes, and began slow, silent breathing. Outside, inmates passed by, some curious, others amused. "Look at Grandpa Zen," one of them joked. But Ray didn't move. His mind was somewhere else, thinking about the night that brought him here. One wrong choice, defending someone when he should have walked away. It wasn't hate that landed him here, it was pride. A lifetime of teaching control, undone in one moment of anger. Still, there was no regret on his face, only acceptance. By evening, the yard filled with noise again. Tyler Briggs walked the perimeter, laughing with his crew, a cigarette dangling from his lips. When he glanced up and saw Ray standing at the fence line, their eyes met. Tyler smirked. "Old man's gonna make my week interesting," he muttered. Back in the cell block, as the lights dimmed and the prison quieted to a hum of metal and whispers, Ray lay back on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't afraid of the men here. What worried him was the violence that hid behind boredom. In this place, it wasn't fear that kept you alive, it was discipline. The next morning, during roll call, a guard nudged him roughly. "Move it, Grandpa." Ray didn't blink. He just stepped forward, calm as ever. From the corner of the yard, Tyler Briggs watched. Something about the old man's stillness bothered him. He leaned toward his right-hand man. "Let's see how peaceful he stays when I take his breakfast tomorrow." The man beside him chuckled. "You sure you want to mess with the elderly boss?" Tyler smirked. "He won't be elderly when I'm done with him." But Ray wasn't afraid of threats. He had lived through tougher places than this, both in the ring and in life. The calm they mistook for weakness was the same calm that had once broken bones and won championships. And soon, the men of Cell Block D would learn that for themselves. Morning came again, loud, cold, and unforgiving. In prison, everything was designed to remind you that control wasn't yours. But for Ray Jefferson, control was the only thing he had left. By his second day, the rhythms of Huntsville had already settled into his body. Wake-up bell at 6. Line up by 6:30. Breakfast by 7. No freedom. No privacy. No kindness in the guards' voices. But Ray followed every rule quietly without complaint. He understood something most men didn't. The fight here wasn't against others. It was against yourself. In the cafeteria, he sat alone again, spooning watery oatmeal while the room buzzed around him. Across the hall, Tyler Briggs watched. That same lazy grin on his face, but his eyes sharp as blades. "Man's got nerve," Tyler muttered to his second Duke Keller, a burly guy with faded knuckle tattoos and a scar across his eyebrow. "Or he's just senile," Duke replied. "Ain't said a word to nobody since he got here." Tyler leaned back. "That's what I don't like. Quiet men think too much. Bet he's hiding something." That afternoon during yard time, Ray walked slow laps by the fence. The sun beat down like punishment. Men lifted weights, smoked, argued, or stared from the shade. Tyler and his crew watched from near the basketball court. "You really gonna bother him?" Duke asked. "He looks harmless." Tyler smirked. "That's exactly why everyone's watching. Can't let some grandpa walk around here acting like he owns peace of mind. This ain't church." He dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "Tomorrow morning, cafeteria, let's make an example." That evening, Ray was coming back from laundry duty when a young inmate stepped beside him. "You shouldn't eat alone," the young man said nervously. "Briggs doesn't like it when new guys act different." Ray turned slightly. He recognized him from earlier. "You got a name?" "Dion McCarthy," the young man said. "Got moved into your cell this morning." Ray gave a small nod. "Then I guess we'll get used to each other." Dion hesitated. "You don't know who Briggs is, do you?" "I know his type," Ray said calmly. Dion sighed. "He runs this place, or at least he thinks he does. Picks targets who won't fight back. That's how he gets respect." Ray looked at him, expression unreadable. "Respect built on fear doesn't last. Not for long." Dion frowned. "You talk like a teacher or something." Ray smiled faintly. "Something like that." Later that night, Dion couldn't stop glancing toward the upper tier, where Briggs and his crew stood laughing. "They're watching you," he muttered. Ray kept reading the small Bible he'd found in the cell drawer. "Then let them," he said. "You're really not scared?" Dion whispered. Ray turned a page. "I've seen fear. This isn't it." The next morning, tension filled the cafeteria like smoke. Word had spread Briggs was going to test the old man. Ray felt the stares as he moved through the breakfast line. Oatmeal again, hot toast, coffee that tasted like rust. He sat in his usual spot at the end of the table. Then came the echo of boots behind him. Briggs. He stopped at Ray's bench, towering over him. Well, look at that posture," he said, tapping Ray's shoulder with a spoon. "You some kind of yoga instructor or what?" A few men laughed, waiting for the reaction. Ray didn't respond. Tyler reached down, grabbed Ray's toast, and took a bite. "Guess you're fasting today," he said with a smirk. "Appreciate the meal, Pops." Ray looked up slowly. "You done?" he asked. The words were quiet, but the tone made the whole room pause. Tyler leaned closer. "You got a problem?" "No," Ray said. "You do." Duke started to move, but Tyler raised a hand to stop him. "Nah," he said. "Let him talk." Ray stood, his posture straight, eyes calm but locked on Tyler. "You want to show power? Go lift weights. What you're doing here, that's weakness dressed as control." For a moment the cafeteria was silent except for the faint hum of the fans. Tyler's smile tightened. "You talk big for a man who's about to lose his teeth." Ray didn't flinch. "You'd have to get close first." The silence broke. A few inmates tried not to smile. Tyler let out a sharp, humorless laugh and stepped back. "You've got a mouth on you, old man. Let's see how long it lasts." He tossed the toast back onto Ray's tray and walked off. Dion rushed over, whispering urgently, "Are you crazy, man?" You don't talk to him like that. Ray didn't answer. He just picked up his coffee and took a sip, as if the storm that was coming didn't scare him at all. They watched him sip his coffee like any other man. He's just another man, Dion, Ray said softly. I've seen tougher ones fall. Dion stared as if he'd seen a ghost. You don't get it. He's gonna come for you now. Ray wiped his hands on a napkin, rose slowly, and folded his jacket. Then he'll find out what coming for me really means. He walked toward the exit, shoulders steady, leaving Dion frozen with disbelief. Tyler Briggs never let things lie. The next encounter would force everyone inside Huntsville to decide which man they feared more. The next 2 days moved like wet concrete, slow, heavy, impossible to hurry. Every footstep Ray took felt watched. Every meal, every small motion drew eyes. In a place where weakness invited pain, silence was often mistaken for fear. Ray's silence was making the wrong people nervous. Dion noticed it first. They're planning something, he said one night, voice low as the pipes clanged above them. Briggs don't take embarrassment kindly. Ray sat cross-legged on the lower bunk, breathing slow and measured. Let him plan, he said. Planning needs thinking. Thinking gives him time to doubt. Dion's face tightened. You really think he'll doubt anything? Ray opened his eyes and met him. Everybody doubts, Dion, even the loud ones. Especially the loud ones. Dion muttered under his breath, You talk like some old movie monk. Ray gave a small smile. I've been called worse. Morning came again, with the familiar rumble and metallic taste in the air. Tension hung like smoke. Some men whispered, others kept distance. Word had leaked. Briggs intended to make an example. Breakfast passed without an open fight, which almost made things worse. Briggs sat with his crew as usual laughing, but there was a patient look in his eyes. Ray knew that look. He'd seen it in the ring, calm before the strike. Later in the yard, the setup began. Briggs's men pretended to play basketball near the fence, while Ray walked his steady laps. The game stalled as he passed. A ball rolled at his feet and a kid called, Throw that back, old man. Ray bent, scooped the ball and tossed it with a clean spin. It landed in the player's hands, perfect. A few onlookers whistled. Guess you still got it, someone joked. Before Ray could answer, Tyler's voice cut across the court. You showing off, Grandpa? The laughter that followed had no warmth. Ray's reply was calm. Just helping out. Tyler moved closer, dribbling another ball like a predator circling prey. You got a lot of confidence for someone who don't belong here. I belong where I stand, Ray said, voice even. Tyler's eyes narrowed. One of those wise old types, huh? Think you can talk your way out of things? Ray's voice didn't wobble. Talking only works on people who listen. Tyler smiled dark and tight. Then let's talk somewhere quieter. Back in the cell that night, Dion couldn't stop pacing. They'll corner you. Laundry room, showers, places guards don't watch. He stopped and looked at Ray. They're gonna pick a spot where no one helps. Ray stretched. The bones in his knuckles popped softly. They picked the wrong corner, he said. Dion's stomach dropped. You don't even seem worried. I learned a long time ago, Ray said. Fear is just energy. You either use it or it uses you. The next morning brought the first test, and it was a message, not yet a fight. Ray came back from work duty to find his bunk overturned, clothes scattered, and his small Bible torn in two. Dion froze at the sight. Oh man, he whispered. This is bad, real bad. Ray moved with careful hands. He stacked the torn pages, smoothing them like someone handling old photographs. His face stayed calm, but something flickered in his eyes. An old ember waking up. Dion braced for shouting, for fists. Ray simply set the pages on the table and said, They're impatient. You're not going to tell the guards? Dion asked, voice tight. Ray shook his head. Snitching doesn't fix disrespect. It multiplies it. Later over dinner, one of Briggs' men accidentally spilled hot soup across Ray's tray. My bad, Pops, the man smirked. Ray stared at the mess, then looked up at the young man. You have poor balance, he observed. The man blinked, uncertain how to take it. Ray grabbed the tray and returned it to the counter, steady and silent, no swing, no shout, then walked away. From a few tables over, Tyler watched, jaw working, frustration tightening his face. He leaned toward Duke. He's playing a game. Trying to look untouchable. Duke shrugged. Maybe he is. Tyler's smile went cold. Then we'll touch him where it hurts, tomorrow. That night, laundry duty felt like the center of the world. The machines groaned and steamed. The room had gaps of no-guard time, perfect hunting ground. The pipes hissed like whispered threats. Dion barely slept, startled by every distant noise, replaying the cafeteria and yard like a bad loop. Everyone knew what came next, but Ray lay calm, hands folded on his chest, eyes closed as if in meditation. He wasn't ignoring what was coming, he was preparing for it. Around midnight, Dion whispered, "You ever fought in a place like this before, Ray?" Ray didn't open his eyes. "Not like this." Dawn arrived and the laundry room smelled of soap and steam. Machines spun, towels tumbled. The room thinned with the minutes. No cameras, no guards for a stretch. Exactly what Briggs wanted. Tyler and two of his men slipped in, laughter low. They'd planned to corner Ray among the dryers and benches to teach him a lesson that fit the prison's crude math. Make a man small, and you look big. But Ray moved like someone who'd walked into worse storms and found calm there. He stacked folded sheets with slow hands, listening to the rhythm of the machines. Tyler stepped forward, voice soft but sharp. "You act like you own the place." Ray turned, towel over his shoulder, eyes clear. "I don't own it. I own myself." Tyler laughed once, a sound without humor. He lunged, not fast, but with a planned cruelty. A hand reached for Ray's throat. Two pairs of hands closed in. The first blow was meant to break a spirit. What happened next felt like the snap of a spring released. Ray moved with a speed that contradicted every crease on his face. He didn't fight like a man angry. He moved like a teacher correcting a mistake. Efficient, precise, and final. Hands that grabbed now found joints locked. Breath choked by technique. Weight shifted in a way that forced the attackers to the floor. A dryer door slammed. Towels scattered. The room filled with shocked silence and a sound like a dozen men swallowing pride. Ray didn't shout. He didn't rage. He straightened, smoothing his towel. "You learned something," he said quietly. "Now you can decide what to do with it." Tyler recovered first, scrambling to his feet, face red with more than pain. He spat words, threats mixing with fury, but his swagger had the edge knocked off. Around him, men who had been ready to cheer now kept their distance. Respect built on fear had been met by something older and more dangerous. Respect built on skill and refusal to be small. Dion stood in the doorway, mouth open. He felt it then, the thin line that had separated who he thought Ray was and who he really was. He realized with a cold clarity that maybe Ray hadn't been the one at risk. Maybe everyone else had been. By the time guards filtered in, drawn by the commotion, the laundry room looked like the place that had always been. Machines humming, men breathing, life going on. No one spoke the truth out loud, but the message passed faster than any rumor. Ray Jefferson was not to be toyed with. And in a world where weakness invited pain, that one act reset the ledger. The ring had rules. This place didn't. "You really used to fight?" Dion asked. Ray sat up slowly, voice low and steady. "I trained fighters. Coached for 25 years. Old school. Taught men how to stay calm when someone tries to break them." "Zenezeti," Dion raised an eyebrow. "So why you end up here?" Ray stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "Someone attacked my son-in-law in a parking lot. I stepped in. I stopped it. I went too far." Silence filled the cell like a held breath. "Control is a muscle," Ray added softly. "You stop training it, it fails." Dion nodded. He was starting to see the quiet around Ray not as weakness, but as recovery. Someone repairing himself with discipline after a single, irreversible mistake. The next morning, the air felt heavier. Guards barked orders. Gates clanged. When the day smells like trouble, every man knows it. "Skip laundry," Dion urged, voice urgent. "Tell them you're sick. Do something." Ray buttoned his jumpsuit as if tying a knot in a rope. "Running teaches people they can chase you," he said. Dion threw up his hands. "Man, you sound like some Yoda-type sensei. This ain't a lesson. This is survival." Ray looked at him, not angry, not pitying, only knowing. Survival is the lesson. When Ray pushed through the laundry room door, heat hit him first. Industrial dryers rumbled, steam rolled in thick clouds. The air smelled of detergent and metal. Briggs's crew was already inside. 3 pretending to fold sheets, another stacking uniforms. Too calm, too quiet. Dion had put himself on a different work list, so he could watch through the tiny, square window in the metal door. His chest tightened. Tyler stepped in last, a bag of dirty linens over his shoulder. He let it drop with a wet thud. "Morning, Grandpa," he said, kicking the bag toward Ray. Laughter followed. Ray didn't flinch. He folded a uniform with patient hands, as if nothing was wrong. That calm made Tyler angrier. "You really think you better than me?" he snapped. Ray didn't look up. "No, but I think you're trying too hard to remember a time you didn't feel small." Those words cut deeper than Tyler expected. His grin faltered. "Say that again," Tyler hissed. Duke moved closer. "You got a death wish, old man?" Ray sighed. "No, but you might." Tyler snapped, and the 3 moved in fast. Years of muscle memory poured through Ray's body. "He didn't flail," he answered. One grabbed a wrist. Ray twisted. The man's knees buckled. A second came swinging. Ray ducked, swept a leg, and the attacker hit the floor hard. Duke lunged from behind, but Ray turned with a cruelty-free precision, using momentum and balance. Duke crashed into a table. Metal rang like a gunshot. Steam blurred the edges of the room. Silence slammed into the space like a locked door. Tyler stood, jaw tight, eyes flicking between the men on the floor and the still figure in front of him. Ray didn't advance. He just straightened, folding the towel over his shoulder as if this was a normal morning. "You don't have to do this, son." Tyler spat on the floor. "Don't call me that." "Then walk away while you can," Ray said. For a heartbeat, it looked like Tyler might rush. Something in Ray's face stopped him. Not fear, not gloating, just a certainty that didn't leave room for bravado. Tyler stepped back, voice full of venom. "You just made the worst mistake of your life." Ray answered quietly, "Maybe, but I made it standing up." When the guards filed in minutes later, the room was calm again. 3 men groaned on the floor, one clutching a wrist, another breathing hard. Ray folded uniforms like he had 100 times before. No one joked. No one cheered. Out in the hall, Dion watched with his mouth open, seeing a legend unspool in front of him. "You dropped them like it was nothing," he said later. Ray rubbed his hands with a towel. "Nothing is never nothing. Everything costs something." "What do you mean?" Dion asked. Ray looked older than his years, and the truth in his eyes was tired but steady. "Peace doesn't come free. You fight for it. The trick is knowing which fights are worth the price." Word spread faster than whispers in Block D. By morning, everyone had heard about the laundry room. 3 men sent to the infirmary, one with a broken wrist, one with cracked ribs. Another 2 humiliated to speak. Each retelling made the story bigger, Ray Jefferson becoming less a man and more a ghost who collected old debts. Some inmates began nodding when he passed. Others moved aside like the shadow of a storm. Even guards smirked and shook their heads, telling each other about the time an old man embarrassed the block's hardest gang. Not everyone found it amusing. Tyler had built his life on fear. That throne collapses fast if somebody else refuses to bow. That evening, while most inmates watched the muted television in the day room, Tyler and his crew sat in the corner. Duke's arm was bandaged. He glared at the floor. The group waited for Tyler to speak. "We're not done," Tyler growled. "That old man, he's dangerous. He ain't just muscle. He's a problem." He slammed his fist on the table. "I don't care what he is. You think I'm letting some gray-haired nobody make me look weak? Nah, we handle this our way." One of the crew hesitated. "You sure?" "The guards are watching him now." Tyler's eyes went cold. "Then we do it where the guards don't look. Make it quiet. Make it hurt." He added quietly, "You don't beat a man like that with fists. You beat him with fear." That night, Dion found Ray cleaning the floor of their cell. His moves were steady, focused. Dion wanted to say something encouraging, and all that came out was worry. "Everyone's talking," he said. "They say Briggs ain't letting this go." Ray wrung out the mop and replied with the same simple resolve. "That's his choice." "Have you thought about a transfer? Ask for solitary. Be safe." Dion's voice was small. Ray lifted his head, half smiling. "I didn't come here to hide. You don't run from what life puts in front of you. You meet it, deal with it, and walk out better on the other side. Dion swallowed. Around here, walking out ain't always an option. The next day, Ray's detail changed. He was moved from laundry back to yard maintenance. It seemed harmless, but the setup was obvious the moment he stepped outside. The yard felt electric, too many faces pretending not to watch. Ray picked up a rake and cleared debris near the fence. On the other side, Tyler and Duke pushed trash carts closer, pretending to work. Each pass left them nearer. Every instinct in Ray was awake, but his back stayed turned like someone practicing patience. "Missed you in laundry," Tyler called, voice loud enough for others to hear. "You hiding now?" Ray kept raking. The silence made Tyler grin. "I guess you only fight when there's an audience." Ray finally looked up. "Fighting's easy. Control's the hard part." Duke laughed under his breath. "You think you better than us?" He scoffed. "No," Ray said simply, "but I'm not worse either." Those words caught ears. Men stopped pretending to work. Something about Ray's calmness unsettled them. It was not arrogance. It was mastery. Tyler stepped close, just inside arm's reach. "You think you taught me something in that laundry room? You didn't teach me a damn thing." Ray's pity was quiet. "That's because you weren't ready to learn." Duke shoved, trying to blindside him. Ray sidestepped. Duke stumbled past. No punches, no retaliation. Guards shouted from the other end of the yard, "Break it up!" And hands flew to separate them. Getting caught meant losing privileges, so the chaos cooled into forced smiles and fake laughs. But Tyler peeled away with seething heat. Every calm response from Ray was a cut he could not heal. Later, Tyler found a guard who looked the other way for favors. He slid a folded note and some commissary credits into the man's palm. "We need privacy tomorrow. 5 minutes, maybe 10. The guard pocketed it and walked away. Back in the cell, Dion watched Ray and asked, more afraid than curious, "You really not scared?" Ray glanced up. "Being scared doesn't help you breathe better." "I'm focused." Dion leaned forward, searching for the plan. "So you're just waiting for them to try again?" Ray looked at him with quiet certainty. "I'm waiting for them to realize the fight they're picking isn't against me. It's against the part of themselves they try to bury." Dion blinked, then sat back, unsettled but strangely comforted. "Every punch got a meaning, huh?" he murmured. Ray smiled, a small, tired smile. "It does if you've been hit enough times." The following morning, the yard smelled like metal and sweat and something sharper, anticipation. Ray walked to his new assignment at the laundry room again, and this time no one pretended not to watch. And when it finally happened, the walls of Cell Block D would never forget it. The next morning felt wrong, too still, too clean, too careful. Even the guards moved slower, glancing toward the laundry room like they already knew what was coming. Word travels fast in prison, especially when it smells like blood. Ray Jefferson walked down the corridor with his usual calm stride, hands behind his back, face unreadable. Dion trailed a few steps behind, whispering in panic. "Ray, listen to me. Don't go in there alone. I heard Briggs made a deal with one of the guards. He's got time bought." Ray stopped right before the heavy metal doors and turned toward him. "You can't live your life avoiding storms, son. Sometimes you walk through them." Dion's voice cracked. "This ain't a storm, it's a setup." Ray gave him a look that ended the conversation. It wasn't arrogance, it was acceptance. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was hot and heavy, full of thick steam and the low growl of dryers. The air smelled of bleach, detergent, and tension. For a moment the room looked empty, just tables, piles of sheets, and a slow drip from a broken pipe. But Ray knew better. He walked toward the back counter, sorting uniforms slowly, his movements deliberate. Every sense in his body was awake. The rhythm of the machines masked the faint scrape of rubber soles against tile. Then a voice came from behind one of the dryers. "You came back, old man. Brave or stupid, I can't tell which." Tyler Briggs stepped out first. Sleeves rolled, a cold smirk on his face. 2 men followed, new ones, lean and sharp-eyed. The door clanged shut behind Ray. "You ever get tired of losing, Tyler?" Ray asked quietly. Tyler grinned. "You ever get tired of talking like a preacher?" Ray kept folding, his tone steady. "You mistake calm for preaching." "That's your problem." Tyler stepped closer, boots squeaking on the wet floor.
You humiliated me.
You made my guys look weak. No, Ray said, still folding. You did that yourself. The words hit like a punch. Tyler's smirk vanished.
Grab him.
The first man lunged. Ray moved with quiet precision, sidestepped, caught his forearm mid-swing, twisted, and used his own weight to drop him. The man hit the floor with a painful crack. The second attacker swung a broken mop handle. Ray ducked low and countered with a short, sharp strike to the ribs, controlled, not cruel. The sound of air leaving the man's body echoed louder than any shout. Tyler froze. This wasn't the same old man he'd tried before. This wasn't defense, it was discipline, training, mastery. Ray straightened, breathing slow. You still have time to walk away, he said. Tyler's face twisted. You think you're teaching me something? You think I need your lessons? Everyone learns, Ray replied softly. The only question is how much pain it takes. Tyler lunged, throwing a wild punch. Ray caught it midair, turned his hips, and redirected the force. Tyler's body slammed into the edge of a table. The metal screamed. Ray didn't follow through. He stepped back. Tyler staggered, pride burning hotter than pain. You don't tell me when enough! He roared, grabbing a metal pipe. He swung hard. The pipe grazed Ray's shoulder, knocking him slightly off balance. The sting made his jaw tighten. He turned, caught Tyler's wrist, and twisted until the pipe dropped. Then he looked him straight in the eye. You fight like someone trying to prove he exists, Ray said. Stop chasing pain just to feel alive. Tyler struggled but couldn't break free. Ray didn't hurt him. He just held him until the fury drained out of his body. The sound of boots echoed from the hallway. Guards were coming. Someone had tipped them off. Ray let go and stepped back. It's over, he said quietly. Tyler glared at him, chest heaving. You think this makes you a hero? No, Ray replied. It just makes me free. The door burst open. 2 guards stormed in, shouting. They froze when they saw the overturned table, the fallen men, the pipe on the floor. Tyler pointed, desperate. He attacked us! Ray didn't argue. He just raised his hands and let them cuff him. One of the officers, a young man still new to the job, stared at him in disbelief. You did all this? Ray's voice was calm. They started something they didn't understand. As they escorted him out, inmates gathered at the bars, whispering. Dion was among them, eyes locked on Ray. Their gazes met briefly before the guards pulled him past. Dion whispered to himself, he's not fighting to win. He's fighting to teach. The hush that followed was like a blanket over the block. It wasn't fear, it was awe. What Ray had done wasn't about dominance. It was about control, about power without cruelty. And in a place built on violence, that was something sacred. Back in the laundry room, Tyler sat on the floor, breathing hard. His men stared at him in silence. One whispered, he didn't even hit you all the way. Tyler didn't answer. His pride was cracked wide open. For the first time he wasn't angry. He was confused. And confusion in time becomes reflection. Soon, even Tyler Briggs would wonder if maybe the old man wasn't an enemy at all, but the only person who'd ever told him the truth. For the next 3 days, Huntsville buzzed with stories. Some said Ray Jefferson took down 4 men with a single move. Others swore he used to be a Marine or a secret agent or a preacher who fought like a soldier. The truth didn't matter anymore. The legend had taken its own shape. Even the guards treated him differently, not kindly but carefully. When he passed through security or lined up for meals, they stopped barking orders. They just watched him quietly, like they were seeing something they didn't quite understand. To them, he wasn't just another inmate. He was proof that age and violence could coexist, and that control could be more terrifying than chaos. That night, Dion watched Ray patch the bruise on his shoulder with a damp cloth. Man, you're like a ghost story now, he said. Nobody's messing with you. Ray didn't look up. That's not a good thing. What you earned respect. Ray wrung the cloth out and set it in the sink. Fear and respect look the same from a distance, but only one lasts. The other destroys. Dion leaned back on his bunk. You talk like you're not even in the same world as the rest of us. Ray gave a faint smile. I've just lived long enough to know which fights are worth staying in. The next morning, he was back at work duty. No laundry this time. just sweeping the corridor outside the administrative wing. The air there was cleaner, the silence softer. As he worked, he overheard two guards by the vending machine. "Briggs hasn't said a word since that laundry thing," one said. "Yeah," the other replied. "Maybe he's thinking about retirement too." They laughed quietly, but Ray didn't smile. He just kept sweeping, eyes calm, shoulders squared. He wasn't proud. He wasn't angry. He was simply at peace, because for the first time in years, he'd fought a battle without losing himself. Ray had seen that kind of silence before, the kind that comes after a storm. It was the space where rage either burned itself out or started to grow again. The next day, when the prison yard opened, the air felt strange, too still, too careful. Even the men who usually ruled their corners were watching one table, the one where Tyler Briggs sat alone, elbows on his knees, staring at the cracked concrete. Duke approached him slowly, unsure. "You good, boss?" Tyler didn't look up. He just kept staring at the ground. Then, after a long pause, he said quietly, "You ever hit a wall so hard it hits back?" Duke frowned, confused. "What?" Tyler's jaw tightened. "He didn't fight me like the others. He didn't even want to hurt me. That's what messed me up." Duke shifted awkwardly. "You saying you're giving up?" Tyler finally looked up, his eyes darker but calmer. "No, I'm saying maybe I've been fighting the wrong kind of fight." Duke didn't know what to say. He muttered something under his breath and walked off, leaving his leader sitting there, beaten not by pain, but by realization. Meanwhile, Dion couldn't stop talking. Every inmate he passed wanted to hear the story again, and he told it like he was preaching a legend. "You don't understand, man," he said. "Old dude didn't even break a sweat. He just moved like water." Ray overheard him that afternoon and called him out later in their cell. "Stop building stories about me, Dion." "Why not?" Dion grinned. "It's true." Ray shook his head. "Truth isn't what people hear, it's what they remember. Don't feed myths. They grow into monsters." That night, Ray lay awake staring at the ceiling. He wasn't proud of the fight in the laundry room. He didn't regret defending himself, but he knew he'd drawn too much attention. And in a place like Huntsville, attention could get a man killed. The next morning, during count time, a guard appeared at his cell. "Jefferson, warden wants a word." Ray followed quietly to the administrative office. Warden Halloran, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a calm presence, sat behind a cluttered desk. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "I've been doing this for 20 years, she said. "I've seen fights end in blood, but never in silence. You didn't take advantage when you could have. You stopped. Why?" Ray met her gaze. "Because I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to stop something before it went too far." The warden leaned back, watching him closely. "Men like Briggs don't usually stop. You think he will?" Ray shrugged. "That depends on whether he's more afraid of me or of himself." Halloran nodded slowly. "Keep your head down, Jefferson. This place doesn't reward restraint." Ray gave a faint smile. "It never has, ma'am. That's why I'm here." When he returned to the block, eyes followed him through the bars. No one knew what the warden had said, but they saw something different in Ray's eyes. Nothing had changed, and yet somehow everything had. That evening, Tyler Briggs passed him in the corridor. No insults, no smirk, just a silent stare. For the first time, Tyler didn't see a frail old man. He saw something unshakable. Ray met his gaze, gave a small nod, and kept walking. That nod lingered in Tyler's mind long after. It wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. And in a place built on pride and fear, mirrors could be dangerous. A few days later, when the sun hung low over the yard, it finally happened. No crowd, no guards, just two men sitting at opposite ends of the concrete. Shadows stretched long between them. Then, without his crew, Tyler Briggs walked toward Ray Jefferson. The yard fell silent, every pair of eyes pretending not to watch. Everyone knew this wasn't another fight. It was something else. Tyler stopped a few feet away. "You got a minute?" Ray didn't look up from the patch of dirt he was raking. "You're already taking it." Tyler gave a small, dry laugh. "Guess I deserved that." He shifted his weight, awkward in his own skin. For a man who had ruled through fear, he suddenly looked lost. "I don't get you," he said. "You don't act scared, but you don't go looking for trouble either." "So what's your deal, old man?" Ray set the rake aside and leaned on it. "You want honesty?" Tyler nodded. "I'm tired. Ray said. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind that comes from spending half your life proving something to people who were never watching. Tyler frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're doing the same thing. Tyler let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You think you know me? I've known 100 men like you, Ray said softly. Strong, angry, always looking for someone to pay for what they can't fix. Tyler's voice grew tight. You don't know what I've been through. Then tell me, Ray said quietly. For a long moment, Tyler said nothing. Then, almost against his will, the words came. My old man used to hit me for breathing wrong. Said fear made men weak. So I learned to hit first. Never stopped. Ray nodded slowly. And it worked. Until it didn't. Tyler looked down. You think I like being this way? I think you don't know any other way, Ray replied. But that's not the same thing. The silence between them grew heavy. Ray studied him, the tremor in his hand, the tension in his shoulders, the flicker of uncertainty behind his eyes. You're not afraid of people, Tyler, Ray said. You're afraid of silence. You're afraid of what happens when no one's scared of you anymore. Tyler's mouth opened, then shut. He looked away, scanning the yard. You think you're some kind of therapist now? Ray smiled faintly. No, just a man who learned too late that fighting the world doesn't make you strong. It just makes you lonely. Tyler exhaled hard. You talk like you never made a mistake in your life. I made one big enough to cost me everything, Ray said quietly. That caught Tyler's attention. What did you do? Ray hesitated. I hurt a man worse than I meant to. I was protecting someone I loved. But I stopped thinking, and when you stop thinking, you stop being who you are. Tyler stared at him, his voice softer now. That's why you're here. Ray nodded. You can't undo it. You can only live with what's left. For the first time, Tyler's expression changed. He sat down across from Ray, quiet for a long while. You really believe people like us can change? I don't believe, Ray said. I know. But only if you want it bad enough to let go of who you've been. Tyler shook his head. That's harder than fighting. Ray smiled faintly. That's why most men never do it. They sat there in silence, no longer enemies. Even the guards in the tower didn't interrupt. Maybe they knew something real was happening. After a while, Tyler stood. You know, if word gets out I talk to you like this, people say I went soft. Let them think what they want, Ray said. They'll do it anyway. Tyler almost smiled. You really don't care what people think, do you? At my age, Ray said, you realize half the people judging you don't even know your name. They just need someone to measure themselves against. Tyler nodded slowly. You talk too much, old man. And you listen more than you admit, Ray said. Tyler started to walk away, but before he reached the door, Ray spoke one last time. Tyler. He stopped and turned. Strength isn't about control, Ray said softly. It's about restraint. Tyler didn't respond, but something in his face shifted, small but real. The kind of change that starts deep and quiet. Later that night, when Dion asked, what did Briggs want? Ray only said, a conversation. That's it? Dion pressed. Ray smiled faintly. That's always where change begins. But in a place like Huntsville, change never went unnoticed. And soon, that quiet conversation would ripple through Cell Block D in ways neither man could have predicted. Something had changed inside those prison walls. The way conversations stopped when Ray or Tyler walked by said it all. The balance had shifted. Fear and respect were no longer enemies. They were learning to coexist. Tyler Briggs wasn't barking orders anymore. He wasn't strutting across the yard trying to prove something. He'd gone quiet. But quiet from a man like him didn't mean weakness. It meant reflection. Some men heal fast after humiliation. Others take their time. Some realize it wasn't humiliation at all. It was clarity. Dion noticed first. Man, Briggs ain't the same dude. Walks past people like he don't even see them. Ray was sitting on his bunk, rolling his shoulder from an old ache. That's what happens when someone finally looks in the mirror and doesn't like what he sees. You think he's really changing? Dion asked. Change doesn't happen all at once, Ray said. It's small choices stacked up every day. A few days later, something happened that proved those words true. 2 younger inmates from Tyler's old circle started harassing a new arrival. a skinny kid, barely 20. They knocked his tray from his hands, laughing as his food splattered across the concrete. Normally, that kind of scene went unchecked. Guards turned their heads, and the rest of the block pretended not to notice. But this time, Tyler did. He was standing near the fence with Duke when it started. He watched for a second, then walked straight toward them. "Pick it up," he said flatly. The two men stopped laughing. "What?" "Pick it up," Tyler repeated, his voice calm but firm. "Then apologize." They hesitated. "You serious, Briggs? Since when you care?" Tyler's eyes narrowed. "Since now." There was something in his tone, quiet but solid. It wasn't a threat. It was a choice. And for the first time, the two bullies bent down, picked up the tray, and muttered a shaky apology to the terrified newcomer. From across the yard, Dion saw it happen. "You see that?" he said. Ray nodded. "I saw it." Dion grinned. "That's you." "You did that." Ray shook his head. "No, he did. He just needed a reason to remember he could." That evening, after count, Tyler walked past Ray's cell. He didn't stop, just said, "Told those kids to leave the new guy alone." "I heard," Ray replied. Tyler paused. "Didn't think it'd feel right." Ray smiled faintly. "Doing the right thing usually doesn't feel natural at first. That's how you know it matters." Tyler smirked. "You got a quote for everything, huh? Only the ones that work." That was the start of something no one expected. Tyler began helping the younger inmates, showing them how to work out properly, stepping in before fights got too far, even talking to guards without a curse word. It wasn't about pretending to be someone new. It was about unlearning who he used to be. One afternoon, during yard cleanup, a fight broke out near the basketball court. Two inmates swung at each other while the crowd cheered. Before the guards could react, Tyler stepped between them. "Enough," he shouted, grabbing both by the shirts. "You think you're proving something? You're just making yourselves smaller." The men froze. The crowd went silent. When Tyler walked away, no one followed, but everyone watched. Dion, sweeping near the gate, grinned. "You're turning this place into a school, man. Next thing I know, you'll be teaching classes." Ray laughed softly. "Maybe we already are." Word spread fast. Even the guards noticed. During inspection, Warden Halloran stopped by Ray's cell. "I've noticed a change," she said. "Not just in you, in others." Ray looked up from his cot. "One conversation can start a lot of noise." She studied him. "Noise isn't bad if it drowns out the violence." That night, Ray sat by the small barred window, looking out at the dark yard. He wasn't thinking about freedom anymore, not the kind that came from open gates. He was thinking about peace. The kind you carry inside, even when the world won't give it. Dion's voice broke the silence. "You ever think about what you'll do when you get out?" Ray smiled quietly. "Probably open a gym. Teach kids how to fight so they never have to." "You think Briggs will help?" Ray chuckled. "Maybe, but I think he's already doing that in his own way." The next day proved him right. During lunch, a group of inmates were arguing over a missing radio. Voices rose, fists clenched. Before things exploded, Tyler stepped in. "Stop," he said. "If it's gone, it's gone. Ain't worth the hole you'll dig over it." Just like that, the tension dropped. It wasn't the kind of power the gangs respected. It was quieter, stronger. Even the guards started talking. "You see Briggs lately?" One whispered. "Yeah," another replied. "Different man." "They're calling it the Jefferson effect." That night, Dion was still laughing about it. "The Jefferson effect, you got your own legend now." Ray smiled. "Legends fade. Lessons don't, but peace in prison always carries an echo." And soon, one final moment would prove that what Ray had built wasn't just control. It was redemption in motion. It was a Sunday morning. The noise of prison life still filled the air, the clang of gates, the distant shouting. But under it all was something new. Respect. Not the kind built from fear, but from understanding. Ray Jefferson was in the chapel sweeping the floor. Father Hensley, the old prison chaplain, was setting out hymn books. He'd asked Ray to help ever since the laundry room incident. "You keep this place calmer just by being here," the priest said once. Ray had smiled. "Peace is contagious if you stop fighting it." That morning, Ray worked in silence until he heard footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw Tyler Briggs, hands in his pockets, hesitation in his eyes. Didn't think I'd see you in here, Ray said. I didn't come to pray, Tyler replied, glancing at the cross. Then why'd you come? Tyler's voice softened. To thank you for not breaking me when you could have. Ray studied him. Breaking you wouldn't have fixed anything. Tyler nodded slowly. Yeah, I figured that out. I used to think respect was something you took. But it's the only thing that gets smaller when you steal it. Ray smiled faintly. You learned faster than most. Maybe, Tyler said. But I've still got a long way to go. Ray pointed to a bench near the front. Sit down. Tyler hesitated, then sat. The colored light from the stained glass fell across his face, softening it. You ever teach anyone before? Ray asked. Teach? Nah, Tyler said. I'm not the type. You could be, Ray said. The younger guys, they watch you. You've got their attention. What you do next decides whether they learn peace or violence. Tyler leaned forward. You really think someone like me can be a teacher? I think the best teachers are the ones who earned their lessons the hard way, Ray said. And you've earned more than most. For the first time, Tyler didn't look away. You're serious, aren't you? I'm always serious about redemption, Ray replied. We're all proof it's possible. The chapel door creaked open. Dion peeked in. Hey, Ray, Bible study starting soon. You coming? In a bit, Ray said. Dion noticed Tyler and grinned. Didn't expect to see you here, Briggs. Didn't expect to be here either, Tyler said. Guess miracles happen, Dion laughed. When he left, silence returned. The colored light shifted across the floor. You ever wish you could go back? Tyler asked quietly. Do things different? Sometimes, Ray said. But if I hadn't fallen, I'd never have learned how to stand the right way. Tyler nodded. You ever miss fighting? Ray chuckled. Every day. But I found something harder. What's that? Forgiving yourself. Tyler's jaw tightened. How'd you do it? By forgiving others first, Ray said softly. They sat in silence for a while. When the chapel bell rang, Tyler stood, hesitating at the door. You really think I can change what people think of me? Start by changing what you think of you, Ray said. The rest follows. Tyler smiled faintly. You should have been a preacher. I was an instructor, Ray said. Same job, different gloves. Tyler laughed, shook his head, and walked out. That afternoon, the yard felt different again. Tyler was talking to the younger inmates, not shouting, not pretending. Just talking. Ray watched from a bench as Dion elbowed him lightly. You see that? Briggs out here giving advice like a coach. Ray smiled. Told you he'd find his way. Dion grinned. You ever realize you're like a walking quote book? Ray just laughed, the sound soft but sure, the kind of laughter that meant peace was no longer a dream. It was here. Ray laughed softly. Maybe, but if a few of them stick, it's worth it. The sun was dipping low behind the fence, painting the yard in soft gold. For once, the place wasn't chaos. It was calm. Men lifted weights, others talked or laughed quietly. A few nodded toward Ray from across the field, small gestures of respect that meant everything in a place like that. Dion looked around and said quietly, You really changed this place. Ray shook his head. No, they did. I just reminded them who they could be. As evening fell, the final count was called. The guards moved in, their boots echoing across the yard, herding the men back toward their cells. The sound was the same as every night, but the feeling wasn't. The tension that once filled the air had been replaced by something else. Not peace exactly, but awareness. Growth. Back in his cell, Ray sat on his bunk. The same old Bible rested on his knees, its pages torn and taped back together, fragile but whole. Much like the men around him, Dion's voice came from the top bunk. You ever think they'll remember you when you're gone? Ray smiled faintly. Maybe not my name, but maybe a piece of what I tried to teach. He looked down at the taped pages one last time and whispered, Strength isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how much peace you can hold when everything around you is falling apart. The lights dimmed, the noise faded, and somewhere down the corridor, Tyler Briggs laughed for the first time in years. A full, genuine laugh. Ray closed his eyes. For the first time since stepping through those prison gates, he felt free. And if you're listening to this story right now, remember, real strength isn't about power or age. It's about what you choose to do with both. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to Unfolded Tales Explained, press the bell icon, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because every story of redemption deserves to be heard.